Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. Teilhard de Chardin, part 16, in which I will continue reading. We're like 2/3 of the way through the divine milieu. But whereas in the example of, for example, The Secret of the Golden Flower, that book will end at one point. We're toward the beginning of it now, so it won't be right away. But when it ends, that pedal on the old chicken wheel is going to be replaced by something else. And Martin Luther, again, we're kind of toward the beginning. It's a thicker book, a little bit, but it will end, and then it will be replaced by the Nag Hammadi Library. Because why go half heretical from a Catholic perspective, Teilhard de Chardin's perspective? Anyway, what? Yeah, whereas on the other hand, the Teilhard de Chardin, the little pedal that says de Chardin, Chardin, is going to be there for a long time. Because I have, for Chicken Philosophy specifically, I have purchased, ordered, and had delivered several books by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, some of which never arrived. But, I'll read the ones I have, and then when I'm starting to run low in the 2030s, I will get the ones I don't have. I'm going to keep on reading Pierre Teilhard de Chardin until I've read all of his books on chicken philosophy, or until I've shuffled off this mortal coil, whichever comes first. How's everybody doing today? Everybody doing well? This is the last of these benzoin. I have a lot of incense, but this particular, strong benzoin has been the scent that I sniff while wearing these clothes on Chicken Philosophy for a while now. You've seen Pymander and Gwydion light similarly thick incense, but you might have noticed they were more reddish, red-orange, red-brownish. Those are the Tibetan ones. Can you hear the rain? It's raining today. Monsoon season is starting on time this year, or even early. We'll see if it continues, but it's been really nice. It rained all night. It's been raining all day. We love it. Some people are like, oh no, well hopefully it'll clear up soon. And I'm like, you alien, what is your... We spend 9 months of the year longing, waiting for this time of year, for the rain. And now it's here. It's great. Just for kicks, here's the view from my balcony yesterday of the rain. So now you have some idea. Well, I will go ahead and get started, but first, let's get some caffeine in our system. Speaking of, anybody know what this is? I know what it is. I'm not asking you because I don't know. I already know. I want to hear from you. Do you know what this is? And do you know how it relates to yesterday's reading of Carl Jung? Is that right? Did I get that right? I don't know. I can't see it. Yes. It says Tyler, Rebecca, Stefan, Vicky, Elijah, Jeremy, Pearl, Bonnie, Caroline, Elena, Damon, Meredith, Matt, Alaric, Catherine, Jenna, Klaus. Editor Edward, could we have some music, please? I'll leave it up to your discretion. And I will get to today's reading. momentarily. All right. French editor's note. Last time it wasn't so bad when he interjected, or she, I don't know. Say no. In pages that were not, like Le Milieu Divin, intended for, quote, the waverers both inside and outside, end quote, Père Teilhard, in the course of a meditation, freely expressed the capital importance which he attached to the priestly and religious vocation, to the evangelical counsels, and to the redemptive power of death. The following short extracts will give an idea of the substance of his convictions. So this is something else he wrote. Every priest, because he is, this is Teilhard de Chardin's voice. That's how you can tell that these are the words of Teilhard de Chardin. I'm doing the Teilhard de Chardin voice. Okay. Every priest. No. Every priest. Yeah, there it is. Somewhere in between. Because he is a priest, has dedicated his life to the work of universal salvation. Yeah, save the world, save the universe. I mean, the bodhisattvas, they just word it differently. If the bodhisattvas were talking about converting people to something-ianity and making them accept Buddha as their personal savior, all sentient beings, they don't even stop at humans. They want the ants. They want the hungry ghosts. I guess Jesus went into hell and freed everybody that one time. But we'll get to that in Nag Hammadi. Actually, obviously that's in canonized lore, but there's a really nice, I think it's the Gospel of Nicodemus, where it really goes into that. But okay. Back to, I don't know if I finished what I had meant to interject to say. Universal salvation, right. Yeah, so, there might be some folks that are watching that are like, yes, of course, that's what the Catholic Church is for, to save the world. It's like, hi, I appreciate that you're here, but the person or the hypothetical assortment of people that I feel like I'm addressing or talking to, when I talk directly to the camera and refer to you as having a specific point of view that's maybe different from my own or similar to my own in some ways and not in other ways, I'm talking to them. Just ignore, when you see me talking to the camera and talking, just know that I'm not talking to you. Okay, yes, I see you there. I have many statues. They're not, never mind. But you can be a statue. You just be a statue on the side, and I'll continue what I was saying to them. Yeah, so it's obnoxious. The Buddhists don't go around with guns and armies and, Portuguese. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have exactly the same ring to it, to work for the enlightenment of all beings, for all eternity, of all sentient beings, to attain nirvana. It doesn't have the same ring to it as we're gonna convert everybody in the world to Catholicism specifically, and then more generally, of course, the Martin Luther folks. More generally, it's not Roman Catholicism specifically. It's whatever. As long as you're something. Even if you're, what's the one with the fire, the Pentecostal, for the fire, the Holy Spirit. Pentecost is what I was trying to remember. And then once I remembered that, I remembered Pentecostal. If you're Pentecostal, okay. If you're Greek Orthodox, even better. That's the Catholic perspective, right? That's the mainstream Protestant perspective, I'd say. And then some Catholics would prefer that you become Catholics. But they'd be all right if you're just Christian. And many, more and more, as time goes by, there are Catholics that are whatever, it's none of my business. You can be Jewish, you can be Buddhist, you can be Hindu, you can be atheist. My son is trans, but I am Catholic. That's what some people say. there is that the demographic. It's a growing demographic, you know. I'll keep reading. So yeah, universal salvation. Got hung up on that phrase, but let's continue. If he is conscious of the dignity of his office, the priest, he should no longer live for himself, but for the world, following the example of him whom he is anointed to represent. Amber, 1/3 rose. BT, it was one thing telling everyone about the masks, but don't give them the recipe. Sorry. A handful of people giggled a little at that. The rest of them were like, what? That's okay. That's how life goes sometimes. Yes. To the full extent of my power, because I am a priest, I wish from now on to be the first to become conscious of all that the world loves, pursues, and suffers. I want to be the first to seek, to sympathize, and to suffer, the first to open myself out and sacrifice myself. What? I think I read that weirdly. Yeah, I read the same line twice. Sorry about that. To become more widely human and more nobly of the earth than any of the world's servants. 3 dots, which perhaps imply that the editor left out part of whatever letter this is. I think it's it's like a more private correspondence. At the same time, by the practice of the counsels and through renunciation, I want to recover all that there may be of heavenly fire in the threefold concupiscence. Editor Edward. Concupiscence. Strong sexual desire. Lust. Example, quote, Saint Anthony's battle with concupiscence. End quote. Thank you, Editor Edward. I want to sanctify. All right, that's a bit of a difference. I want to sanctify you. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I mean, he didn't say satisfy either, but you know, this one. Yeah. Back to the music. Okay, we're all here. Yes. Satisfaction. I want to sanctify through chastity. That's a little different than satisfaction. Poverty and obedience. That's another one that the original OG Buddhist monks are like, rule number 1, no sex. Because here's what will happen is you'll have a baby and then you'll feel guilty because you're not being a good monk. The more you try to be a dad and the more you, and vice versa. Like, obviously, these days there's other kinds of monks. There's Nagapas that are like householders who are also ordained monks, but they don't live in a monastery and they're not chaste. They have families, things like that. And it's kind of like, oh, that's a good idea. It's like what the Greek Orthodox and most Protestant denominations do, but like priests in the Catholic Church are like, keep it in your pants or else, And repressing natural flows has negative consequences part of the time, which when you have like 1 billion people in one groupthink, then surely there's going to be a decent handful of terrible things happening with any group of 1 billion people. We've seen it with other groups of 1 billion people. Never mind. Okay, where are we? I want to sanctify. Oh! He wants to sanctify through chastity, poverty, and obedience the power invested in love, in gold, and independence. That's kind of like what the idea of a Nagapa would be. But my point was, if you're going to compare things, then it would be an appropriate comparison to note that about the priests in the Catholic Church. and the monks in a Theravadan Buddhist order, they both have keep it in your pants as a number one rule. And but one says, like, don't give in to desire and complicate your life by having a kid on the side. You try to focus, the whole point was to focus on your spiritual path. They're both doing that, but the Buddhists put it one way and the Christians are like, I swear not to touch myself as much as I want to. Like, it's like, I don't know, I guess it's, but if you read the scriptures, it's fun, like if you check out Pymander, you get to hear all kinds of crazy stories about Udayan, and who was the one that he had a former wife, and then he like left and became a Buddhist monk in the like 2,600 years ago. And then his family said, hey, we need to give our inheritance to somebody, so can you come home and plant a seed so that we'll have a grandchild? And he's like, okay. And so now you get to hear his life story. It's fun. It's worth checking out. Just look up the old Polytech Society. Thank you, Polytech Society. And, get yourself a set if you want. Or otherwise, it's all on archive order, But if you're a nerd like me. Anyway. What? The path. Oh, priests, have you never have you been priests in so full a sense as now, merged and submerged as you are in the pains and the blood of a generation. World War II, I think he's talking to those folks. Never so active, never so directly on the path of your vocation. I feel so weak, Lord, but that I hardly dare ask you to let me participate in that beatitude. But I perceive it clearly enough, and I proclaim it. Happy are those of us who, in the decisive days of the creation and the redemption, are chosen for this supreme act, the logical crowning of their priesthood, communion into death with Christ. Dramatic music, editor. All right. I don't know. I don't have anything really to add or to. It's all kind of. That's what he wrote. Okay. 3. The spiritual power of matter. The same beam of light which Christian spirituality, rightly and fully understood, directs upon the cross to humanize it without veiling it, is reflected on matter so as to spiritualize it. Okay. In their struggle towards the mystical life, men have often succumbed to the illusion of crudely contrasting soul and body, spirit, soul and body, spirit and flesh as good and evil. But despite certain current expressions, this Manichaean tendency has never had the Church's approval. And in order to prepare the way for our final view of the divine milieu, he said the thing. Perhaps we may be allowed to vindicate and exalt that aspect of it which the Lord came to put on, save and consecrate. Holy matter. From the mystical and ascetic point of view adopted in these pages, matter is not exactly any of the abstract entities defined under that name by science and philosophy. It is certainly the same concrete reality for us as it is for physics and metaphysics, having the same basic attributes of plurality, perceivability, and interconnection. But here we want to embrace that reality as a whole in its widest possible sense, to give it its full
what? But here we want to embrace that reality as a whole in its widest possible sense, to give it its full abundance as it reacts not only to our scientific or analytical investigations, but to all our practical activities. Matter, as far as we are concerned, is the assemblage of things, energies, and creatures which surround us insofar as these are palpable, sensible, and, quote, natural, unquote, in the theological sense of the word. Matter is the common, universal, tangible setting, indefinitely shifting and varied, in which we live. How, then, does the thing thus defined present itself to us to be acted upon, under the enigmatic features of a two-suited power? On the one hand is the burden, the fetters, the pain, the sin, and the threat to our lives. It weighs us down, suffers, wounds, tempts, and grows old. Matter makes us heavy, paralyzed, vulnerable, guilty. Who will deliver us from this body of death? But at the same time is physical exuberance, ennobling contact, virile effort, and the joy of growth. It attracts, renews, unites, and flowers. By matter we are nourished, lifted up, linked to everything else, invaded by life. To be deprived of it is intolerable. Non exui volumus sed super indui. 2 Corinthians verse 4. Who will give us an immortal body? Asceticism deliberately looks no further than the first aspect, the one which is turned towards death, and it recoils, exclaiming, "Flee!" In quotes, the word flee. But what would our spirits be, O God, if they did not have the bread of earthly things to nourish them, the wine of created beauties to intoxicate them, and the conflicts of human life to fortify them? What feeble powers and bloodless hearts your creatures would bring if they were to succeed in cutting themselves off prematurely from the providential setting in which you have placed them. Teach us, Lord, how to contemplate the Sphinx without succumbing to its spell, how to grasp the hidden mystery in the womb of death, not by a refinement of human doctrine, but in the simple concrete act by which you plunged yourself into matter in order to redeem it. By the virtue of your suffering incarnation, disclose to us and then teach us to harness jealousy for you, the spiritual power of matter. All right. You know, I'd say it was a nice shift more into the outer layers of the, like not just sort of repeating. Yeah, it was good. It was better than yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, but part 15, but part 14. If you haven't seen part 14, just click this. Don't think, just click bye. Now that they're gone. Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, not as like, what Top Gun is for like join the Air Force. Not meaning to look at it in that light, like as he's not like being a Roman Catholic apologist. He just happens to be a Roman Catholic who has some pretty wild ideas. And so, yeah, he's cool. Well, next time it'll be Edward reciting Martin Luther. So we'll see you then.